I love the community, the openness, the ability to be able to share and kind of bring people together around this technology. And before we, as we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. I wrote down a few things. Number one, the goal of the meetup group, I just wanted to state that plain. Our goal is to, allow for connection in this development community and connect our community as well with the other development communities, because there's 14 WordPress meetups here in the Southern California area. It's a huge community. All you have to do is go on to you can go to meetup.wordpress.com or something like that, or just go to meetup.com. Search for WordPress within 70 miles, 50-mile radius, and you'll see all of the WordPress meetup groups listed there. And any time of the week, you can probably go to a WordPress meetup group. You can do it every day of the week if you wanted to. And it's really awesome. I love that about the WordPress community. And the other thing that I really love about the WordPress community is just that everybody is wanting to share with each other. We want to share, skills. We want to share knowledge, and we want to share, what we know and kind of help each other grow. So growth and community, that's really what we're all about. And so, let's see. And we want to do it all free of charge. It's you're not getting charged for any of this, and it's awesome. That's what I love about it, because WordPress is an open source software, and so we want to keep the community open source as well. We want to protect that as well. So that's what I love about it. We have another guy walking in. What's your name, sir?
Peter Mobley.
Are you a WordPress developer?
Getting there.
Getting there? Awesome. I'm glad to have you with us. All right, so a couple of things. We just want to cover a few things. I'm wearing my shirt from WordCamp Los Angeles. Woo, woo.
Yeah.
All right, so how many of you have ever heard of a WordCamp? Heard of it? I've heard of it. How many of you have ever been to a WordCamp? All right, so we want to get you connected in with the WordCamps as well, because really, WordCamps are it's just like an event, a weekend event usually. It's a smorgasbord of just teaching and, just community, things like that, where you can meet other developers and also learn skills for your business, learn skills for WordPress. What about you guys who went to WordPress before? What would you say about it?
Cheapest education you'll get.
For sure.
It's $40 usually. You get a t-shirt and lunch usually, and it's 2 days of education.
And food at an after party with some food.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right.
The after party was awesome, wasn't it? ORG, and you can check out, you can actually check out the WordPress or the WordCamps that are coming up. There's 2 of them. There are 2 WordCamps, and that are coming up. One is going to be in Vegas, and that one is going to be in on December the 18th. And the other WordCamp is going to be in Phoenix. And it's actually the Phoenix WordCamp, but it's in Chandler, Arizona. Just come to this website. That's January 17th and the 19th through the 19th of next year. And the Vegas is December the 18th of this year. So we want to, hopefully, what we can do is we can all go down there as a group. That would be awesome, And we have a logo for the Inland Empire WordPress group now, which is pretty awesome. Go to wordcamp.org, and this is a really great website where you can find out more about the conferences. The next thing we want to talk about is, let's see, our Facebook group. If you guys are not on Facebook, it looks like I'm the only one posting in this group right now. But if you're on Facebook, you can search for Inland Empire WordPress. And also, I want to encourage you to check out OC WordPress, OCWP, because really, that was the inspiration for the Inland Empire WordPress group. And I know...
Oh, that's my face, okay.
There you go, free promotion there. Where is it at? Yeah,
I think you have to hit the back button.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is my Facebook, and I'm like, where's all my bookmarks? Okay, so there's OCWP. They're an awesome group. And when do they meet, Greg? Because I know you go all the time.
They meet twice a month. They have a general meetup, which is more for just learning how to use WordPress. And then they have a developer one, and I believe it's the first and third Mondays.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, two?
There's two.
Okay.
There's two. And I heard there was a third one. I think Jason Tucker was telling me there was a third one.
There is a designer one. But
Okay.
I don't know the date on that. Suzette runs the designer one.
Okay. So I mean, yeah, that's one of the 14 meetups here in Southern California area. But I'm telling you, like, I was like, man, we need a meetup here in Inland Empire. So that's the reason why we got this started, because OC is kind of far. I just moved here and I was just like, I don't know my way around California. So that's the reason why we did Inland Empire. So if you haven't joined the Inland Empire WordPress group, it's really basically just free support. Just come on here, post your questions if you have a question or anything like that, and as much as possible we'll answer that. And also go to OCWP and you can request to join that group as well. The next thing, we also have a website that is in development. You see it's pretty bare bones right now. I've been trying to do this like in my spare time, but I just want to throw this out there for anybody who wants to maybe cut their teeth on helping out on an open source or on our community website. Basically, just contact me, and I mean, like, every now and then, or if you want to practice, get some WordPress work on this website, we need some help, as you can see. But on here, we also have our location and things like that. We also have a YouTube channel, and this video is going to be going on the YouTube channel. Let's see, I guess if you have a YouTube and you just search for Inland Empire WordPress, let's see, Inland Empire WordPress. I think our last video where Dre, see there he is, Dre from Security is there, and so we're posting the videos up there, and then we want to stream them into the website so that we'll just have a kind of a log of every meetup here, and people will be able to, who haven't come to the meetup, they can go on the website and check it out, and so for your convenience. All right, let's see, the next thing we want to talk about is, a couple of resources. So we talked about WordCamp, we talked about WordPress, we haven't talked about WordPress TV. If you have never gone to a WordCamp and you want to just kind of get a little bit of the experience of WordCamp, come to WordPress.tv, and you can come on here and watch previous WordCamps. And this speech right here by Matt Mullenweg, he's one of the co-founders of Automatic. They developed the software WordPress. State of the Word is a really good speech for you to watch. Check it out. It talks about kind of the trajectory of where the software is going, where it's at now, and just a really good way to kind of get an understanding about what WordPress is. So WordPress.tv. For beginners, there's this website called WP 101. If you're just starting out, if you don't know any code or anything like that, WP 101 is actually a really good website for you to go to so you can understand the basics of administrating a WordPress website. So WP101.com, check that out. It's a really good website. And then also for people who are intermediate, check out Generate WP. If you've already kind of jumped into the codex a little bit and you understood a little bit of how WordPress works and the code behind it, the functions, go to Generate WP, and that can help you, kind of put together functions to add to your website. It'll generate actual things for you. But the kind of like the mother lode of it all is just come over here to WordPress.org, and where is it at? documentation. Go to support, documentation. If you're really just wanting to understand and just get a good grip of how WordPress is put together, start here. The codex is your best friend. It's constantly updated, and it's something that you can always go to as a resource whenever. It has code examples, copy and paste, all you want. You can just copy and paste all you want. But read up, and they kind of lead you through what you need to know. Read up, and you'll be able to understand more as you read through these things. Codex.wordpress.org. One other resource I want to point you to is WP Water Cooler. This is a weekly broadcast. It's done by Jason Tucker. He's part of the OC WordPress group. And it's just basically kind of a roundtable discussion of WordPress. And they have some pretty cool topics. I was on it this week because we were talking about meetups. And so you can go to WPWaterCooler.com, and it gives you advice from all the way from development to different things you can use in your WordPress business and things like that. So check it out. And a couple of other ones I didn't open up was WPTuts.com. I think it's, if you just type WPTUTS.com. It's one other resource for you. It should redirect to a website called tipsplus.wp.com or something like that. Let's see. WPTuts. You know what? If all else fails, Google is your friend, right? There you go. So it's wp.tutsplus.com. It's another, and there's tons of websites out there. These are just a couple of resources for you to check out. And so that's pretty much all that I wanted to cover. And at this point, we're going to allow Chris to go ahead and take over.
Wow, Chris, blow your mind with WordPress stuff.
All right.
Okay, so as Barrett mentioned, my name is Chris Perryman. Can everyone see the screen okay? I know the text is kind of small, but I just wanted to make sure everything would fit height-wise for these slides. My website is revelationconcept.com. And if you want to follow along with these slides as I'm going through them, I've got lots of links and things for you guys in there, so you can access that by going to revelationconcept.com/presentations. And right now it's the only thing that's in there, so you can just click it and get started. @RevConcept is my Twitter handle. If you guys want to connect with me, I really don't tweet a lot, but I'm trying to be better about it. Tonight I'm going to talk about designing and developing for UX from a client perspective. Is everybody familiar with what the term UX is short for? Kind of, sort of? User experience, yes. My husband Drew is like, no one's going to know what that means. But it's a term that's thrown around a lot with what we do. And usually it's referring to what visitors to sites are seeing when they get there. So like, how is their experience on the site as they're clicking around and doing things? But I want to talk about it from our client's perspective. Just a little disclosure though before I go any further. A lot of the things I'm going to be talking about are maybe what would be considered more intermediate. But everyone in this room, I have full confidence can do the stuff that I'm talking about. It might be a little uncomfortable at first, but like we like to say, if you don't break something, you're not learning. So if you're going to mess around with some theme files and stuff, just make sure you make copies of them first and try and play around. And if something ends up not working, you can always put back what you had there originally. So again, as we're talking about this, I'm going to be referring a lot to the client, and I know not everyone in here is working for clients necessarily. So in that case, the client would really just be yourself. I just want to plant some seeds to just help you guys figure out better things you can do with WordPress to get WordPress to work for you instead of against you. Okay, so step one, I just want everyone to start with a thoughtful thought process. And just kind of get it in your mind when you're working with clients that from a development standpoint, you don't know anything about WordPress. You really need to put yourself there. Because I think a lot of times when you're familiar with something, you just kind of assume that so is everyone else. So a lot of times when we're setting up the control panel, we tend to do things just based on what's there already. So just never assume you know who your client is, and I want you to kind of think of them as the least technologically inclined person you know. So I'm gonna pick on my parents. Yay, I'm that. So I'm gonna be tailoring my sites to somebody like my parents. They're both very intelligent people, but as far as technology goes, they're not used to it. They didn't grow up on Facebook and things like that like we did. So I'm gonna be thinking about somebody like that. Even if I know my client has maybe some knowledge about WordPress, I'm just gonna pretend that they don't. Okay, so a lot of this is just what I like to call not being a jerk to your clients. Because it's really easy to be a jerk when you're doing things that is limiting what they're able to do with their own content. So I'm going to show you 2 examples of bad practices, and then I'm going to show you how to avoid doing things like this. So I get a lot of referrals, and a lot of times they're people who have pre-existing WordPress sites and they just want some help. And here's a couple of bad practices that I see a lot. So pasting HTML, for those of us who write it, we're trying to do maybe something custom with WordPress, and we're taking HTML and we're just pasting it right into the code editor. That's not really fair. I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys an example of what that looks like. Oh, sorry, I got to log back in. So tonight I'm going to be using one of my client sites as an example. Hold on, this is the slide presentation. So Richard Solomon Group, this is one of my clients, and we're going to be referring to the site throughout the presentation as far as how we have this panel set up and stuff like that. But I went ahead and put a sample page in here. This is not part of the actual website, just to show you guys what I mean. So everyone's probably familiar with this area right here. It's the content editor, and you can switch back and forth between visually what you would normally be looking at and then text. So in this example, we've got markup in here that's not native to what you can usually do with the content editor. So there's things like sections in here and divs, and it looks really pretty from the front end. It looks exactly like how this page should look. But when your client comes in here to change things, this is what they're seeing. And then this is a real life example. I had a client contact me and he was like, oh, I just got this awesome brand new WordPress site. I love it so much, but I'm really busy. I have a media hit coming up. Can you help me update some content? So I logged in there expecting to see certain things, and this is what I saw. And I was like, how is he happy with this? Because he's not a developer and he doesn't know anything about code. But he told me that his designer gave him this really nice manual. Step 1, step 2, step 3, find the H2 tag, dig around in here, and if you want to change the title of the page. That's just not fair. I would never do this to my mom. So let's not do it to our clients. Okay, hold on, I'm trying to get back. Bear with me a second, I lost my slides. Okay. Okay, so this is that example number 2. I know it's kind of hard to see, but if you're following along, it should be a little more clear. This is a template file, and I see this a lot where people are trying to do complex things with their layouts to make their client sites look awesome, and they're hard-coding content into the template file. This is worse than the other example I showed you, because at least in the first example, clients can see that, it's in their control panel. Most of our clients are not going to be digging through their theme files, and they shouldn't, because that's how they're going to start breaking things. But if you're locking content into a place where they can't get it, that is again being a jerk to your clients. Okay, so how do we get around this? Step 1, we're going to start correlating form to function. And again, I'm talking about kind of this from a developer perspective, so normally you're going based off of a web design. So we're going to just put some thought into the build process before we start, and to start with basic fundamentals. We're going to look thoroughly and thoughtfully at the layout, the content, the design, everything that's on the page. And we're going to utilize a traditional reading style. This is really important so that our client can look at these things and have them make sense. So from top to bottom, left to right, when we're looking at the website, is how we're going to start to build things on the back end. And we're going to call things what they are. We don't want to call things by what their classes are or by anything that has to do with the markup on the page. We're going to call things that make sense, call things in a way that makes sense to our clients. So once we kind of have an idea of this, we're just going to start to build the form to function relationship. Okay, so in this example site, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you guys can see more. So on this site, at the top, we just got a slider area. So I don't have a laser pointer, but this box at the top, okay, we're going to just consider that a section. And then under this, we have an area that is all of everything sitting in here has to do with the services that they offer. So starting in the services section, I'm going to talk a little more detail on this, but we've got a title area right here, and then an introductory paragraph to what the services are, and then this call to action button. And then we have 3 distinct areas here underneath. These are 3 separate services, and then within each one of these, we've got icons, a subtitle, and then another intro to what that particular service is. Okay, and then under that section, we have another section called featured work, featuring 3 different projects. And on hover, there's just a little more information like project title and stuff like that. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take a look at what this was doing on the back end. So that was the home page. And this is a specific template that we built for this client. Okay, so I actually messed these up earlier when I was sliding things around. And I'll show you guys why I was doing that. But we've got the home page slider right here. They're not actually controlling this on this page, but, well, they get to choose which one they're going to use by entering the shortcode. But we put a little note in here letting them know where the controls are for this page so that they're not just stuck being like, why can't I figure out how to operate my slider? So thoughtful things like that, labeling things, putting in descriptions is really important. And so then the services area. This is all one block of usable content for the client. So it starts with a tab called Services Intro. And then you can see right there we've got a place for them to insert their heading, a place for them to insert that introductory text, and then they can choose where they want that button to link to. Down the road, we're just protecting them in case they want to change the content around a little bit. They're not stuck. Then for the first service area, we've got the title, the ability to change the icon, and to change the little introductory description. And all these things are labeled, title. And then we've got these really, you would think that it's kind of common sense instructions for them, but I mean, sometimes it's just necessary. You'd be surprised with, I mean, just the kind of phone calls that you get asking for help. But, so literally type in the service title is what that says. So then icon description, these other 2 areas are the same, but they're distinct to those 3 spots I showed you. And then featured projects, again, this is out of order and it shouldn't be, don't do this to your client. But the featured work area, they can choose a heading, and then in this particular instance, this client wasn't sure whether or not he'd always have 3 projects to feature. So we gave him an option to choose 0 to 3 projects, and depending on what he does select, we set up the theme so that it will accommodate to those spaces being empty if it needs to. And then in this case, he's using 3 projects, so he can choose what those projects are from these drop-down lists. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you really quickly about what custom meta boxes and fields are. Because everything I just showed you, if you've used the paid theme, you've probably seen stuff like that. If you're used to just like the standard native WordPress page and post, you're really only ever gonna see an area for them to enter a title, and then maybe some content and a couple other things, maybe like featured image. But I just showed you a bunch of really detailed things for your clients to be able to control. So how are we going to do that? First, we're going to start, I'm just going to explain what a meta box is. A post meta box is a draggable box shown in the post editing screen. And its purpose is to allow the user to select or enter information in addition to the main post content. And then it says this should be related to the post in some way, but that's kind of, we know that. So that's exactly what I was showing you and why these are out of order, because I was dragging them around. We can move these around. So this whole area that's collapsible, featured work, that, everything contained in that, that's a meta box. Okay, so then what is a custom field? Custom fields are post metadata. And post metadata is saved in WP post meta, that's a table in your database. You don't really need to know this, I just wanted to put it there so that you guys can have an idea of what's happening. And if you are getting a little more into development, it is something important to know, even if you're using a plugin, just kind of an awareness of where things are going and where they're coming from and one. But in this example, so this area right here where they can type heading, this is a field. It's just a text, a plain text field. This is another field, it's a drop-down selector field. Another example would be, this is the WYSIWYG, that's another type of field. So those are all custom fields. Okay, so how can these help my client? So I mentioned natively WordPress comes with some built-in meta boxes and fields like the title, content editor, and the categories. But there's a lot of times when our client's content can't just be shoved into those few things. That's how the bad practices that I touched on in the beginning happen. When you're trying to make awesome things happen design-wise, and you're trying to put it all into just one WYSIWYG editor, you're going to end up doing things that are more complex than what your client is able to look at, interpret, and change.
Could you describe what WYSIWYG is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. That's just the standard WordPress editor. That's this thing right here. So usually you've got little controls here. And some of the other ones you can like upload pictures and stuff. So everyone's seen this kind of in WordPress. So that's what a WYSIWYG is. So the default on post and page, there's one sitting there for you to enter the page content in on. But we can add more than one, and we can add all those other different fields that I kind of pointed out really quickly. Okay, so how do we implement these? Was anybody here for Greg's talk a few weeks ago about advanced custom fields? Anybody? Just?
You know,
Okay.
we were actually at another location.
Oh, were you? Alright, I'm going to get to that one last because it's the best one. But you can set these up by hand, and I don't think anyone in here wants to do that. I don't want to do that. But I gave you some resources if you want to look at it. It is kind of something, again, kind of just to increase your knowledge if you want to read about it. There's an awesome project on GitHub I have a link to called Custom Meta Boxes and Fields. I do kind of like this one because it's not a plugin. And if you're doing more like commercial theme development, I've heard that's kind of what a lot of people are using is something more similar to this, where your client can then install the theme and they're not seeing the plugin where you're controlling all of their content. So that's an option, but it is sort of limited. Advanced Custom Fields is the greatest plugin ever created. I use it for all of my projects. I was using number 2 for a long time. And everyone's like, no, you should try Advanced Custom Fields again. It just got a like big makeover or whatever, and it is seriously so great. It's free. There are some add-ons. They're $25 each, and they're totally worth it if they're doing something that you need to be using. And that $25 is an unlimited license. You can use it on as many sites as many times as you want. I wasn't going to go into a bunch of detail on that because I figured most of you guys heard about it, but in the other meetup. But I'm just going to show you, I have it running on the site. So custom fields, this is what it does. This puts this right in your admin. So for the services area, I just showed you, this is all one meta box. Everything in here is going to be contained in one meta box called services area. And then you can just pretty much tell it, you give the field a label, and these have to do with when you're going to implement it into your theme. Those are the field names. And then the field type, so we have tabs, text, the WYSIWYG, page links, all kinds of different things, image upload, there's full galleries, all kinds of stuff that you guys can use. So I would definitely check that out. It's really easy customizing the admin with that stuff. I'm gonna show you guys in a minute how then we get that stuff to appear out on our pages on the site, because the plugin is like the first step, but if you want things to show on the actual site, you need to do some stuff to your theme files. But before I do that, I'm just gonna talk quickly about custom post types. Has anyone heard of custom post types? Does anyone use them, familiar with them? Okay. They're probably my, I don't know if they're my first or second favorite thing about WordPress, but custom fields is right up there. It's between the two of them. So what is a custom post type? You guys are familiar actually with what post types are, because the native post types are the posts that we have in WordPress and page. Those are two that we've all used for sure. Attachment, revision, and navigation menu are also considered post types. But a custom post type is a new post type that we can create, which is the best part. So a custom post type can be added to WordPress with the register post type function. And that function is going to allow you to create a new post type and then give it labels and supported features and a bunch of other stuff. In my sample, I'm showing you like a really basic one, but I do have links to more complex ones. So some examples of what you would want to do with a custom post type. If you've got a client who has like staff members, for instance, I use this one a lot, and they want to, keep adding people to their company and taking people away, you can create a post type called staff members where they can do that. So instead of having everything crammed into a content editor and they're, erasing things and moving things and they break their layout every time, it happens every time, you can do a custom post type so that content is just sitting by itself. And then if you add that to some custom fields too, it's going to be awesome. So if anyone's used like WooCommerce or any of those e-commerce plugins, products, that's another really common custom post type, that all those guys are using that. This presentation is a custom post type in my website. I created a custom post type called presentations. I gave some fields like titles and just basic slide content, and it literally takes me about 5 seconds to create a new slide just by doing that. So custom post types really just simplify our content management, and they allow us to keep things organized and display the content in a way that's unique to that content. So you're not restricted to just pages and posts. And I put a little note at the bottom. If you couple custom post types and custom fields together, the results are just, seriously limitless and awesome, and your clients are going to think you're a rock star for sure. Okay, so setting up a custom post type. I know you guys probably don't want to look at code, but like Gary's mentioned, just copy and paste. Like literally just copy and paste. In this example, I'm using a post type called projects. So if you wanted to call your post type shoes, every instance of projects, you just change to shoes. That's it. So like I said, this is a basic custom post type, and I've got links down at the bottom. You can read more about this in the codex, and it's got a longer example. I've also made a couple of my files for the site available on GitHub. There's a link to that at the end, so you can look at what I've done there too. And then there's a really awesome down here, this link, register custom post types breakdown. Everything is commented on this, it's in GitHub. And so it really explains what each of the different arguments are and what they do, because there are a few and it can get kind of confusing. But in this example, there's just two. So we're just going to say that this post type is going to be public, meaning that pretty much the public can see it. It's not going to be hidden in admin. And then we're just giving it a label of projects. And so the function name, I just named it RSG_CPT_projects. RSG, that's my client's website, Richard Solomon Group. You want to make sure that you're giving your functions a distinct name so they don't conflict with other plugins. And then CPT just stands for custom post types. So you name the function, you pass these arguments, and then you're just going to add the init action at the bottom that's just telling WordPress when and where to execute this function. So it's going to happen kind of first before anything else on the site. So where do you put this? Is anyone familiar with the functions PHP file? A couple people? Every WordPress theme has a functions PHP file. Some of them have more files than others, but that one has to be there for the theme to even operate. All you have to do is paste this in there. That's it. And that will then do something like this in your admin. So in this site, we've got a custom post type called projects. As soon as you paste that into your functions and you load it up to your server, like via FTP, this is gonna show up. So I'll show you then what we've got going in his. He can just add projects as he wants to, and he names his based on like the building type, like that's who his client is. But in here, then we've also got some advanced custom fields that we add with that plugin I mentioned. So he can give the project a title, he can add different list items, and he can add them as he wants to. This is a repeater field, that's an add-on to this plugin. He can just hit this button and add another one, and keep adding them and adding them and adding them. Project description, he doesn't have one in this one, but these are all options for things he can fill in. An excerpt that appears on some other pages. And then project photos, you can just drop a bunch of stuff into this gallery. Again, that is another add-on for the advanced custom fields. And then he sets a featured image, and then on the website, everything comes out initially like this. But if he clicks on, or if the user clicks on an individual project, this is what they see. And these are all those fields that I just showed you that are producing this content. So, I mean, that's really awesome, because now he's got projects set in a different area in his admin where they're just unique unto themselves. And these pages look different from every other page on his website. Okay, so displaying the content. Like I said, you can register the custom post types, you can set up the custom fields. Okay, so now they're in the database since you added them, but they're not necessarily going to be showing on your website until you make some changes to your template files. Okay, so what are custom templates? Custom templates are files that give us the ability to make pages or posts display or behave differently from their defaults. So we can create templates based on our needs, and then we can tell WordPress when and where to use them. So again, this is how we're going to get our custom posts, our custom meta boxes, and our custom fields to appear on our pages. Okay, so first things first, I'm just going to show you basically how to set up a page template. So everyone should have a page.php and their template files. The easiest thing to do is just copy that and then change the name and then make modifications to what's already there. So if you copy it, you have to rename it. There's really no naming structure for page templates. I like to start mine off by just putting template dash and then whatever the name is. That's the easiest way for me to find them, but you can do it however you want. Some template files in WordPress they have like a structure to the naming. This one actually doesn't. So once you do that, copy the file, change the name, change your code around. If you're going to use advanced custom fields, they have probably some of the best documentation of any plugin that I've ever seen. And they've got all the little PHP snippets that you need to get your content to display. Again, copy, paste, change a couple of things, change the you do in the page template. And then once you're done, you just need to put this little line of PHP at the top. This is going to tell WordPress that it's a page template, so it knows how to use it. So these asterisks and slashes are necessary. It's going to comment this out. And then the template name part with the colon, that's part of the structure. Everything after that is just the name of the template. You can make it whatever you want. It's just so that you can identify it yourself. And so I'll show you how this works in the admin. So from any page, you guys have probably used these before too if you've used like a paid theme. But under templates, these are all the different templates that his site's running. So you can choose then, once you upload it to your server, it'll be in this list. As long as this is at the top of the page file, then WordPress knows what to do with it. Okay, so custom post type templates. So the post type I just used as an example was project. So how do we get that to look different from other pages on our site? Single PHP is again a file that you should have in most themes already. So we'll just do the same thing. We can copy that and we can rename it. This one does have an actual naming structure that WordPress needs to know what to do with it. So you're just going to start with the word single. You're going to add that hyphen. Forget the brackets. Those don't need to be there. So you're just going to put post type. So whatever the post type name was when you set it up. So in this case, it's projects, lowercase p. Then you would just do single dash projects.php. And as soon as you put that in on your server, WordPress knows that that is the page template that should be associated with that post type. And there is a hierarchy too to protect you in WordPress. So if you don't have something single dash post type for your post type, next WordPress is going to look for single PHP. And if it can't find that, it'll then look for index PHP, which is again a file you have to have for your thing to even run. So at least your content will be displayed somehow. It just might not look that pretty. So again, rename the file, make your code changes, add the PHP you need to get things to display, and then upload it, and that's it. Okay, and then one last thing is just the custom archives template. I don't know why they really call this archive. I think it's kind of confusing. The index PHP is what you guys are familiar with. So if you're on a website and you go to the blog, in this case, I'll just use projects as an example. This is an index of all of these posts on the site. So archive PHP is essentially doing the same thing, and that's what you're going to be using when you set this up for your custom post type. So if you don't have an archive.php, because I've seen a lot of things that don't use it, you can just copy index instead. So you're just going to copy it, you're going to rename it, and this is again a sensitive filing structure that this file needs to have. Archive dash your post type, so in our example that would be projects, and then just upload it to the server, and then WordPress knows to look for that first. If that's not there, it'll look for archive PHP. If that's not there, it'll just default back to the index.php. Okay, so even more stuff. Giving them more control. So you really, the whole point of this is that we want our clients to literally be able to control all the content in their website so that they never have to call you about that stuff. We want them to call you in 3 or 5 years, hopefully, when they're ready to upgrade their website, but you don't want them calling you every day to make these little changes because it's wasting your time. And it gets really frustrating.
Unless you're getting paid for it.
Well, unless you're getting paid for it. And that was my argument at first, but in the grand scheme of things, you're making a lot more money when you're working on bigger projects with value-based pricing than you are doing lunch of like the whole task at an hourly rate. And to me, the biggest thing is that it just gets so annoying.
Well, there should be some sort of agreement in your contract with
For
the
sure.
client indicating, okay, after 5 calls or something like that, then I'm going to start charging you for X amount of dollars now. Because otherwise, then they're going to call you all the time anyway.
Yeah, and it's easy to let them start to either scope creep, we like to call it, where like this was our agreement, and then you kind of help them here and you kind of help them there, and then they expect you to help them with everything.
Yeah,
Or you just feel like, oh well, I obviously didn't do a good enough job building it, and they need my help. Well, I'm trying to show you how to do a better job building it so that they don't need your help. And then I'm also going to show you something that you can add if they do need your help as a resource to use before they contact you. So if they call you, you lose. Kind of just explain that. You don't lose if they're asking you to do something new and you're getting more money. But if they're just calling you to have you constantly help them with things like adding posts, then you're losing. So, and then what was the point of even using WordPress? The whole point of WordPress is that it's a content management system. It's not a static website. Your client should be able to control everything. So a couple more examples of client abuse, and I see these a lot, and I'm guilty of doing this too before I figured some of this stuff out. But hand coding menus into widgets. Is everyone familiar with what a widget is? You can like put them in the footer and stuff. I'm not going to show you the example, but it's what I showed you before, where people just paste a bunch of list items into a widget, and then if the client wants to change, for instance, links in their footer, they have to go in there and search and try and find like where's the URL, where's the title, and it's just sloppy. And then again, hard coding the menus into the themes, which is even worse because then you've got something like this stuck in a PHP file on the server where the client doesn't know how to find it, and if they want to rename a menu item or remove a menu item, they have to call you because they don't know, 1, where to find this, or 2, what to do with it if they do find it. So registering menus. If you guys are using paid themes, you've seen this before. If you can manage your menu, this is already set up. But for people who are building themes, this is just how you tell WordPress that there is the option for them to manage the theme, the menu and where it should be. So again, just copy and paste. I've got this function, I called it RSG, client initials, register menus. And then in this, I'm going to actually set up two menus. One is a header menu, so this is like the slug, the name of the menu. And then this is the title of the menu that they're gonna see in the admin. And then we're gonna set up another one called footer menu. So they've got two different places now in their theme where they have access to managing menus. And then we're just gonna add this at the init action when WordPress loads. So again, you can put these in your functions PHP file, or I'm gonna kind of touch on it at the end, functionality plugin. Don't let the fact that it's a plugin scare you. If you've messed with functions PHP, it's pretty much the same thing. So displaying these menus, once you add that to your function, so now WordPress knows that there needs to be a menu, it'll show in the admin, but then your theme's gonna need to know where it should spit that out. So in this example, we're just talking about the main menu, the header menu, and more than likely, your menu is probably set up in header.php. So we're just gonna use this WP nav function, and we're just gonna tell WordPress which menu we're calling. So theme location is header menu. Header menu was the one we just set up right here. So you just need to pass that. And then WordPress knows that's the menu that should be displayed in that spot. So again, paste this in your header PHP in this example, or if it's a footer menu, then obviously put it in your footer PHP or in a sidebar, wherever it needs to be, just open that template file. And so then I'll show you quickly in admin how this looks. So they can go to appearance and menus. And so this is, in this site I called it main menu instead of header menu, but they can, move these around. You guys have probably done something like this before. They can change the label, they can delete things, they can add things, and then all they have to do is save the menu, and they don't have to call you to help them with it. Okay, so giving them site options. This is one of my kind of new favorite things to do. And this is again another add-on for advanced custom fields. It's a $25 one, but I bought it once and I use it on all my client sites. So this allows you to create a menu item called options. I believe you can rename it if you want to. Anybody know? I think you can. I just usually leave it called title options. With this menu item, you can extend the client's ability to control more advanced site-wide features. So things that are going to be appearing on pages like continuously. So for example, site logos, giving them the ability to switch that out. If you guys have used a theme, your theme probably lets you do this already. But when you're developing custom sites for clients, it's a feature that's usually left out a lot of times. Custom header images, social networks, and icons, usually you'll see them like up in the header or down in the footer, giving them control of those. That's another thing I see hard-coded into themes a lot of times. But that's, again, something that's constantly changing. Social networks are popping up every day. And then footer area controls. I like to not use widgets because I think they're confusing. I don't even really know what they are. And I know my mom doesn't know what they are, and I don't think most clients know what they are. And especially if we're talking about menus, just instinctively, your client's not going to be looking under a menu item called widgets when they're trying to find control for a menu. So that's just some different stuff that we can set up on the options page. So in this particular site, this content box is an option that he potentially has on every single page. And on the pages themselves, he just clicks a checkbox to tell the page whether or not to display this contact information. But let's say he just wants to change, something in this content area. Well, instead of him having to go to every single page and change that, he can change it here one time and save it. And then on those pages, just decide whether or not to show it. But more importantly, so the footer options. Again, this is something I see locked up a lot of times in widgets, and then it's a bunch of code pasted in. But we just gave him the ability to control all three boxes of the footer. So in this first area, we have some social networks, and then these other two areas, he's using this to link to a sister site that he has. and then some contact information. So that's all in here. So for the social networks, I gave him all the options. I used my best judgment. I know his business of what I thought he might use. And then he came in and decided he's only going to use Facebook, LinkedIn, and the email, and these are conditional. So, and this is again all set up with advanced custom fields. So he can click email, and then he can add in the different URLs and the email address he wants to use. And all of a sudden, in the icons, this is all just built into the theme with CSS. So then in the second box, this is just, again, obviously waiting to learn what that is now. And he can put whatever he wants here. And the same for box 3. He can, if they move, he can change the address. If they get a new phone number, he can change all this himself. Okay, so I just want to talk briefly about kind of customizing the actual admin area. We talked about customizing content control and all of that. But let's talk about the admin area because that can kind of be a big problem. First, the help, because they're going to call you. They're going to definitely call you. Even if you do all this awesome stuff, they're still going to find something to call you about. So I like to add a help section in the admin area that they can just refer to before they contact me. So it's kind of like the last barrier before I have to deal with them. And I love my clients. That's not what I'm saying. But the phone calls can get overwhelming, especially if you're a one-man show. So video tutorials I think are huge, and they're really easy to make. It's just pretty much what you'd be telling them on the phone anyway. So get your computer and turn on some software, and just as you're explaining it, point and click, and then upload it to YouTube and link to it. And I set mine up in a plugin that I have, it's my own admin plugin. But you can put this stuff in functions PHP too. And I show you plus Stomp, those are 2 applications I use to create my videos, but there's a bunch of stuff out there, I think even some really good free stuff. Some other stuff you could put in there is just step-by-step written instructions or some screenshots. So the first thing we're going to do to get this to happen is add a dashboard page. There's information about this in the codex, I linked to it. I'm just passing a few parameters, so the page title in this instance we're calling help. The menu title I'm going to call help too. And the capability, I set it to read. So anybody, whether they're an admin, an editor, a subscriber, or anything, is still read. They can all see the help panel. So that just controls who's allowed to see it. And then the menu slug is whatever you want it to be. I called it RevCon instructions. RevCon, that's my company. I'm using that on my functions in this because this is in my own plugin, not my client's plugin. And then the last thing is the function we're going to pass on this page. So I'm calling that RevCon instruct page. So we're just going to add action at the bottom. And again, you can paste this in the PHP, functions PHP, or you can put it into a plugin. And then with that, so probably right under that, this is the function that will execute. So this is the function instruct page. That's what we just called right here. So now WordPress is going to find that and it's going to do this. So in this case, it's just, I've just put some example stuff. You can put your page content in there and just plain old HTML. And then I've got an iframe in here. This is, what I usually do is after I record the videos, I post them on YouTube with a private URL. It's not hidden, someone can get to it if they go there directly, but it's not just like in my YouTube for everyone to see. So just putting that in there with an iframe, and then again, put this in functions with the other function I just showed you, or put it in a plugin, and then it does this awesome stuff. Oops. So what it does is under dashboard, we now have this help button. And then on this page, it can say whatever you want, but in this instance, I just got a video embedded here. And if they play it, it shows me teaching them how to do some more advanced things. And I don't set these up right away. Sometimes I do, but I might charge for like a video package, like 5 videos. Usually I do this after they've called me once about something, because I assume that they're going to call me again about that same thing. So I just take the initiative to just do this real quick and put it in there, and they usually don't call me again after that. Okay, so in addition to that, cleaning up the admin. This is just something to take in consideration. It might not always be the best practice, but again, you know your clients, so just kind of decide what you think you should do. But removing and hiding unneeded menu items, if they're not going to use it, then it probably shouldn't be there. If you don't want them to use it, then it definitely shouldn't be there, because they'll do something crazy and break something. Reordering menu items is something that I do a lot, because I just feel like it's harder for them to find what they're looking for if things are scattered in a way that just doesn't really make sense, depending on what the content is under those tabs. And then also, one last thing is renaming the default posts to something else. So I'm going to show you how we got this stuff set up real quick in this client site. So I'm going to log out of this though, because this is an admin account. And I'm going to log into what he's going to see, so you can see what the difference is. Oops.
So Chris, the gentleman who's logging in, he's coming in as an editor.
He is, I'm going to get to that in a second. Yes, he is. And I almost always do that too, and I'll explain why. So this is what my client sees. I don't know if you noticed how many menu items I had and what I was looking at, but this is what he's looking at. And everything in here, for the most part, I'm comfortable with him messing with. He's not going to break the layout of the site or do anything crazy. Okay, so I've removed some menu items. I've also added a few, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But one of the other things that I did is this news tab, that is what you would traditionally see labeled as posts. But I've run into this a few times, and some of you may have too, where you have a client who calls you, and in that initial call, you're trying to gauge, how much work is this going to take, what do they need, what do they want, so that you can get an estimate together. And whenever I ask them, well, not all the time, but the majority of the time, are you going to want a blog? And they're like, no, I'm not a blogger. And it's like very negative. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And then a few minutes later, I asked them, okay, well, are you going to want to add like news and updates? Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it's the same thing. But blogging is a term that a lot of people are just not familiar with, especially an older generation. They don't know what it is. So I'm not going to tell them on the phone that, okay, don't worry, I won't give you a blog, I promise. And then leave something in the admin called posts. It's confusing one, and so they will end up calling me about that. Like, I can't find where I'm supposed to add my updates and my news. So I'm just not going to do that. So I like to rename this, and in this case I named it news because that's what he wants to add, even though really it's just a post and a blog. But I've got a couple of tutorials that will show you how to rename that. Again, it's just some more code that you can paste into your functions PHP or into a functionality plugin if you want to do that. And then again, reordering the menus and hiding things. There's just some walkthroughs down here if you want to check those out.
Excuse me. How much of that can be done with multi-site?
Most of it should be able to be done with multi-site. It gets a little more complicated. I have not worked with multi-site too much, so do you do a lot of multi-site stuff?
Not a lot, but you're right.
It is a very good question because multi-site is finicky and you can't do all of this stuff. But I would say the majority of what I've talked about, you should be able to do with multi-site. And also, a couple of these links down here are actually plugins. So there's tutorials if you want to do it yourself, but there's plugins if you'd rather not have to look at any code. There are some good plugins that will remove menu items, reorder menu items. I'm not sure about retitling menu items. Did I find?
I posted one in the Inland Empire Meetup group today.
Well, there you go.
Later.
So check that out. But yeah, so you can do this with plugins too. And the plugins will tell you, or should tell you, whether or not you can use those with multi-site. The plugin should say that. Okay, so as Greg just mentioned, admin versus editor role. So I almost never, if I had to put a number on it, I'd say 95% of the time, my clients are getting an editor role. I don't want them touching half of the stuff, almost all the stuff that the administrator can do. So I'll set them up with the editor role, and then I'll assign them capabilities if they need more. I usually just use add capability as a function that I have documented in the WordPress codex for you to look at. But you can also, again, do stuff like this with some plugins I'll show you. So some questions to ask yourself though is, can my client handle being an administrator? I don't know if my mom could or would want to handle being an administrator. So I'm not gonna give her all those extra buttons because it's confusing. Again, when we're talking about trying to make things as unconfusing, is that a word, for your client as you possibly can. So I'm not gonna leave them a ton of menu items that I don't want them to touch. It's gonna make it harder for them to find what they're looking for, and they're gonna end up looking around and they're gonna end up accidentally changing something and saving something and breaking something. So if they shouldn't touch it, it shouldn't be there. So again, the example I just showed you on the live site, that was an editor role. So with that, we can add and remove capabilities. Well, let's say you want them to just stay as an administrator, you can remove some capabilities so that they're not there. But then also, you as an administrator, you're going to lose those capabilities as well. So I think it's easier to set them up as an editor and just add capabilities. So one capability I usually add is menu control, because I just showed you guys how to set it up so that they can edit it. Well, it needs to be there. Normally, if you're an editor, you don't see this appearance tab, so you don't have access to the menus or the widgets or the themes. So I add this capability by pasting some code into functions. And then also I removed from this drop-down menu the customizer because I don't want them messing with the way the theme looks. So you can do this, again, there's some documentation in the codex for adding and removing capabilities and getting roles. So in this case, getting the editor role. But you can also use plugins to do this. User role editors is one I found that looked like it had decent ratings. I haven't used it. I was using Role Scoper a while back, but this plugin does so much, like so much, that it's kind of confusing and I feel like it's a lot of bloat. So if I don't need to use it, I just usually do this stuff myself. But one thing to note, if you are going to assign your client an editor role, then make sure that someone besides you, preferably someone in their company or them, has administrator credentials as well. Because God forbid something happens to you and then they're just stuck with an editor role, and if they want to do something to their site that takes administrator credentials, they don't know where to find them and they're going to have to start over, hire a hacker, and if they're using security, it's not going to work. Okay, so lastly, I just want to touch on what a functionality plugin is. I talked a lot about functions and pasting them into either functions PHP, and a couple of times I mentioned putting them there or putting them in the functionality plugin. So what this is doing is it's allowing the content that we're setting up to be portable. So if down the road your client switches themes, which in my case, most of my clients don't even really know what a theme is, I don't think that would necessarily happen. But again, hopefully in a few years when they're ready for a makeover, they're calling me again. And it's going to save me a lot of time if I'm putting the functions that are relative to their content in an external plugin. I can just make my changes to like the theme appearance or just set them up with a new theme without having to dig through a bunch of code and move a bunch of stuff around. It's just all sitting there. So what is the functionality plugin? Again, don't let the word plugin scare you, because plugin development is like a whole other beast. Like even if you're doing WordPress development, it gets a little more complicated. But a functionality plugin is literally your functions PHP. It's the same stuff. You're just adding some PHP comments at the top. So what it does is, as I mentioned, it's housing your custom functions that are not necessarily tied to your theme. So it's a portable functions PHP, that's how you should think of it. So determining what goes here can be not really confusing, but you kind of need to make the best call. First, ask yourself, is this content? If it's something related to content, then it should be in a functionality plugin. It shouldn't be locked into the theme. So for instance, if we're going to set up a custom post site, like the projects that I used in the example, and then later we're going to switch to a different theme, all of those projects would be gone, because that post type was registered in my functions PHP, which was tied to that original thing that I developed. So that would be something that would be good to put in a portable functionality plugin. If it's something specific to the theme, or the theme's design, you can just leave it in functions PHP. So this is something Bill Erickson said. A good rule of thumb is anything a user would expect to keep after changing a theme belongs in a plugin. So this includes custom post types, taxonomies, meta boxes, and shortcodes. So setting up the plugin is super easy. I know you guys really can't see this, but if anyone's ever gone into their style.css, you pretty much see the same type of thing at the top. It's just telling WordPress what the plugin name is, and you're naming that yourself. The plugin URI, and you're putting that URL there. A description, again, whatever you want it to say, something that makes sense. Author would be you, the author URI would be your website, and then a version number. And then right below that, before the closing PHP tag, we would just paste in all the functions that we want to be portable, and that's it. So literally, if you're using the functions PHP right now, you can just cut things out of there and paste them into this. And then once you upload that, it needs to go in WP content plugins folder. You can just drop it in there, or you can put it in its own subfolder. It might be a little cleaner, but it just needs to be sitting in there. And as soon as you do that, it's gonna pop up in the admin. So bear with me because I have to log back into my other control panel. Okay, so if I go into plugins, right here, that's what's going to show up. So it's the Richard Salomon Group Portable Functions plugin. And if I deactivate this, it'll break half the stuff on his website. But if he switches themes, then all the new thing really needs to do is, you know, set up display for where those custom post types and things are going to be, but at least all the main functionality is there, and everything that he's got in the database is all linked up the way that it should be. So I know I covered a lot, and I know we've got all varying levels of user experience in here. So if you guys want to contact me about anything, like anything, not even the stuff that I talked about, that's my email address. And then I also have the functions PHP, so everything that has to do with this website example, all the functions that we're running, this is on GitHub. And with that, I've got the RSG portable functions PHP, so you can kind of look at what I left in the original functions and what I moved into the portable functions. And the majority of the little code snippets I showed you are in there too. So you can see in real world application, like how they're set up and how they're working. They're slightly different from the examples because I made those very small. But everything's also commented in there too. So I left you notes to kind of explain what things are and why they're there. But that's it. So just go and do awesome stuff with WordPress.
Awesome.
I'll leave this up.
Questions?
Yes. Oh yeah, questions, sorry. Does anybody have questions? They can be other questions too, or maybe something I talked about, maybe think of something else that you were wondering.
Are you familiar with the members plugin? You must be.
Yeah, I haven't necessarily used it. That's another really good one, and it does some more complex stuff than what I was talking about.
Yeah, I was just wondering why you would choose those plugins rather than the members plugin. But you haven't compared them.
Yeah, I really haven't compared them. Like I said, I'm not saying plugins are bad. I don't really like to use a lot of plugins because I don't always know what they're doing. I don't want to go and update them. I don't know if the editors or the plugin writers are updating them necessarily all the time. So if it's something that I deem simple for myself to do, sometimes I'll just write it real quick and include it. But I have heard of members plugin, and I know a lot of people use it, and I've never heard anything bad about it. So that's probably a good one.
Seems to me like custom fields is a pretty simple task to do. I would suspect that custom fields plugin recommended would be really bloated. Advanced custom.
I mean, I've got it running on almost all my websites, and I've never noticed a performance issue with it. There are definitely plugins I've installed before where I'm like, wow, this plugin just like slowed my site to a crawl. Like you can notice. And I've never had a problem with that one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I use it on every site and I know, I think.
Yeah, I know Greg's a huge, he just did one whole class on that plugin. Yeah, I have had a couple of people who have tried to consolidate the way they're kind of pulling the fields in their theme files to limit queries to the database. But even that is something that's so minute, I've never noticed a performance issue from it.
Yeah, I probably only thought it might be bloated because it was called advanced custom field. And
Well,
to me, it seems like so easy to just make a custom field, you know?
exactly. Well, that's why they're calling it advanced. So you can make custom fields in WordPress by turning them on, right? You can still do that with the thing. And you add the like a key value pair at the bottom. Is that what you're talking about? So they're calling this advanced
I
because
just created a new taxonomy, so it's very easy to do that, you know?
oh yeah. Well, that's more a custom post type. Is that what you mean? The custom fields are like the boxes that run down the page.
Yeah, the taxonomy, it custom, well, yeah, I kind of think of a taxonomy like a custom field too.
Yeah, you're right. I think it'd probably be considered that. I think they're just calling it advanced because there were plugins before it, and you can add custom metadata to WordPress yourself, just down at the bottom with key value pairs. But they're just text boxes. But they're calling it advanced custom fields because the fields themselves are advanced. You've got galleries, the ability to upload photos, the ability to pull in post objects and literally give them drop-down menus of a certain post type or pages. So it's advanced in the sense of what you're able to do with it, not necessarily what it's actually even doing.
Yeah, I guess you can't do much with custom fields.
I would just check it out. Like I said, they have some of the best documentation that I've ever seen. Videos, step-by-step tutorials, everything is really clean the way that it's laid out. And if you go into the forum, if you have a question, the developer is super quick at getting back and answering people. And it's really actively supported plugin too. Anybody else have a question?
Kind of unrelated, but sort of related. What do you charge for the websites that you do as far as like?
I can't tell you. Okay, so what I like to usually do is first I have like a base price that I won't go under,
Right.
and that changes a lot. Like depending on how busy I am, I'm like, okay, well I think I can get away with this now.
The
but
reason I'm asking is because you're doing a lot of work to be able to program a lot of that kind
Right.
of functionality and limit it to the client side.
exactly, and I don't know if I mentioned it in the beginning, that sometimes doing what's simpler for the client means a lot more work for us. But in the end, it's worth it. And I've done enough websites to know that it's worth it if you put a little extra time in. And once you start doing this stuff, it's really not as time consuming as you would think, because you just get so used to it. And using tools like CodeBox, where you can just kind of grab things, or my text editor is a blank text too, and there's snippets in there. So I can type like a keyword, hit tab, and like the whole function will just spit out. So things like that really speed it up. But with pricing, and these guys have heard, I don't know if you guys have ever heard Chris Loma speak, but he's like the business WordPress guy. He talks about WordPress more from a business aspect. And he preaches value-based pricing all the time. So I would say with the stuff that I'm doing, this is adding tremendous value to the client's site. So you can get away with charging more when you're giving them something like this. And besides that, they see it and they're like, oh my God, I did not know that this is what I was gonna get. Like they're excited. Because they probably had a bad experience before with something, maybe WordPress, maybe something else. And so they're just totally blown away. And my whole client base is referrals. They tell their friends, they tell their other business, partners and their relatives and whoever. And so it just, when you're gonna put the quality of time into it, it just speaks volumes. And people want to tell other people about that. So I'd like to shy away from the pricing thing though, if that's okay.
What about in general for somebody that's just starting out? How about ballpark? Not your.
So what you could probably charge?
well, anybody that's just starting to do these, but doing them in a way like you're talking about, if they're able to put them up and make them more user-friendly for their clients and stuff, what would be a ballpark figure in high and low end?
Okay, so I'll just talk in like general terms for
Right.
what I think. So there's a bunch of pricing tools that are out there. I think Prism again even has a little, not a very long like ebook you can buy. Yeah, check out chrislemon.com if you've got business questions about pricing structure, stuff like that. He is a genius. But he's got a little ebook that I bought too that teaches you how to set up your own value-based pricing. And a lot of it is just believing in yourself and your ability and the quality of what you're doing. Because I think a lot of us, especially in the beginning, we really get down on ourselves like, oh, but that person knows so much more than me, and I should only be charging this because I suck. Well, you don't, because you know more than somebody else, and if you're providing value to that client, then that value is worth something. But I think typically people, if you're doing what is considered custom theme development, I've seen prices all over the place, but I mean, if you're doing like a child theme, or even if you're customizing a theme that already exists, like you could start around $1,000 for something like that. If you're doing like really custom themes and like maybe like a 5-page website, nothing super crazy, you know, closer to $2,500. I know Bill Erickson has like a service, yeah, $2,500. He'll take any design, and he uses Genesis framework, so it's a little different. A lot of that stuff's already there. I use starter themes, so pretty much everything I code is from scratch. So it takes a little longer, but I also have control over everything that I'm doing. So it depends on, and that, it doesn't really depend on how much time you're putting into it, really. It depends on how much value the client's getting out of it and what it's worth to them.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky thing to
It's
figure
like
out.
artwork,
Yeah, it is.
yeah. Or even a custom old cards. The
So
value
if
is
you
what
die,
somebody wants
your
to pay
websites
for
are
it.
worth twice as much as they were when you put them. No, it doesn't work like that. But yeah, the
You're
real
using
trick,
the eye of the beholder, I guess.
the real trick is figuring out what the value is to your client, and you won't. It takes a little bit of time, but you will eventually get to a point where it's like, if they're not willing to pay it, then they're not worth it as a client. Because a lot of the clients who you get, especially in the beginning, because you're charging lower prices or you're trying to build your portfolio at a lower price point, are like the most nightmare clients ever. You'd think that the ones who are spending more money would want more control, and it's the total opposite.
Well, I've had that in just a cleaning business. I mean, the ones that want it yesterday and they want it this way, those are the ones that never pay you. The ones that come in and just give you a key and tell you to go do it, and you do it, and the checks, you know, on the counter when you get there. So yeah, I mean, you like you said, you learn as you go.
Yeah.
Who's who, and you
And
can
it's
pick
a
the
learning-
clientele more that way
It's
too.
definitely a learning experience. I mean, you're gonna have to deal with some not so great clients, but eventually you kind of learn how to weed them out.
Any other questions related to the talk?
Other than money? We'll get you off the hot seat of the money. I do have one really stupid question, probably.
No questions are stupid.
The website that I put up for my daughter was, I don't remember, I guess .com, WP.com.
WordPress.com.
Yeah, so what is the difference in that and org? Because she wanted to do something she couldn't do,
Right.
and she was supposed to switch over.
Yeah.
But it doesn't just switch over, and man, what a mess.
Yeah, you're explaining it perfectly. So that's what happens. So WordPress.com, those are hosted websites that are hosted through WordPress.com. So the great thing about it is that you don't have to pay a hosting company. You can just go there and set up your WordPress site. And they've got some really great themes that you can use. But if you want to do anything custom, you don't have access to anything that I talked about tonight. Like, you can't do any of that. So if you want to start doing custom things, or you want to purchase like a really nice theme from some, you know, other reseller, you have to be what they call self-hosted. So don't really think of WordPress.org, because that kind of confuses people. So you're gonna need to set up a hosting account somewhere, not GoDaddy. Like HostGator, Bluehost. But you're gonna need your own hosting account, and you're gonna need to do a fresh install there of WordPress. And a lot of the hosting companies now, they have what they call a one-click install. So they already have WordPress set up on their servers, and you just have to say, hey, install it, and then enter some fields, and it will pop it out for you. But if not, WordPress.org is where you go for all the resources that have to do with self-hosted WordPress. So you go to WordPress.org, you can download the latest version of WordPress, upload it to your new host, and then do the install yourself. So really that's the difference. WordPress.org is just, it's all the plugins, it's all the documentation that has to do with self-hosted WordPress. And WordPress.com is more similar to something like Blogger. It's just like a hosted
Yeah, because
solution.
that's how she started, it was just a blog, that's all she wanted
Yeah.
to do was
Yeah, it's
information
rated
out
up.
on a daily basis that she wanted to come up.
Yeah, and I usually tell, because some people ask me in the beginning, especially like friends who, I'm not gonna take on their project, but I'm like, use WordPress, it's so easy, it's free. And they always ask me, well, should I do .com or .org? Depending on what they want to do in the future, then that's what I'll tell them. So I'm like, well, are you doing this casually? Do you think you ever want to expand? Do you think you want to do more customization to the theme that you picked? And if they say yes, I tell them to go with WordPress.org. Hosting is super cheap these days, especially in GoDaddy. So
Not worth it.
it depends. I still have some clients on there, I don't tell anyone. But
All right, what did GoDaddy do to everybody?
they just, they've done a lot of stuff. I feel like they've been getting better though. They've been trying harder.
Shared
The biggest
hosting
problem
is
with-
bad, I think.
Yeah.
The
Well-
biggest problem with GoDaddy is they support CISPA, and what are those things?
I know what you're talking about. I don't think you guys remember what they're called.
I think they're called CISPA.
Like the censor the internet thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to get, if you want to stay in business, or if you want to do stuff on the web, you don't want to support GoDaddy. There's
They've
basically.
just they've had a lot of security issues. They tend to overcrowd their servers. At one point, when I first started, I had my WordPress blog on there with a 20-second page. So they've gotten better with stuff like that, but a lot of
There's just stay away.
well, most people that preach they hate them are developers. Most clients don't care, don't know. But I think their customer service is pretty good.
Probably great as a prize.
I had a client and their website went down for 3 days on GoDaddy, and the client hounded me about it,
Yeah.
And so I was
Everything's
spending
always your
all kinds
fault.
of time talking to GoDaddy, finding out what's going on, So it was a real pain to me.
Yeah. The people that work there too, they're really friendly, but a lot of them you can tell they're reading from a textbook or whatever it is, like a manual, and you really have to ask for second, third tier service to get answers sometimes. So that's another problem. But
So who does everybody recommend?
well,
Every band is good, but it's expensive.
Bluehost.
yeah. I use Media Temple. I don't know if you guys know Suzette, she comes to some of these meetups. I love it, but it is a little more expensive. And I've got a dedicated server too, which is more expensive. But their grid service is pretty good, and I think it's $20 a month, $30 a month. But GoDaddy and things like that are, $3? So you're talking a lot more expensive. And if you're just a casual blogger, you don't really need something like that. But HostGator was okay. I've been hearing people complaining about it lately. I don't know, do you?
They had
I use
a
Bluehost for the cheap end. And
There you go.
WP
Okay, so
engine for the-
Bluehost, if Greg's using it, it's
I've heard
okay.
good things about Bluehost.
Okay,
They've been good for me so far.
Yeah.
HostGator is really, really good company, but I guarantee every hosting company goes down. Every one.
Oh,
yeah.
They had a big
Yeah.
problem. They had a big problem recently, and so they got a lot of bad, press.
yeah, I heard they were
But
switching their
they're
servers.
top
That's how they
notch.
got bought. There's a big conglomerate now, HostGator, Bluehost, about 6 different ones. They're all under one.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So that's
So another thing,
Is it
you should
GoDaddy?
register your domain names with whoever your host.
You should not.
I don't think you should, because what happens if you all of a sudden decide you want to switch providers and they hold you hostage? So you can't make changes. So you're pointing to your.
Yeah, I usually do that. Well, a lot of times when clients come to me, they've already got their domain registered somewhere, and I usually just leave it there. Because if for some reason we don't end up having a working relationship in the future, I don't want to be stuck with their domain in my account because I post for them. So I'll leave it there, usually leave their email where they have it and just point the DNS around. So
Yeah, right.
And who do you use?
I use Media Temple.
Is that who you use for your, when you register for your?
No, my domains are still like GoDaddy. My sites are there, but my domains. Yeah, my domains, because I initially registered there, and I just left them there. And when everyone got all up in arms about the Censored the Internet thing, I was like, oh, I should go move those. But there were so many, and I was kind of busy building stuff.
Well,
So-
they have good DNS servers.
They seem to be okay. I haven't had issues.
Like the hosting, hosting I've always had issues with. So,
Last month, GoDaddy went down their whole system wide $6. XO 28 hours.
When, yeah, was that like about a year ago or something?
No, this was past month and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, because
They
my
go down
email
all the
runs
time.
through their webmail, I guess. I mean, I don't keep anything on the server, it just kind of bounces over to my devices, but I didn't notice that I wasn't getting email or anything.
I find the smaller the company, the more reliable they are.
That might be true.
We do domain registrations.
Oh yeah, there's a hosting guy in here. Hopefully we can find anything bad about it.
We do domain registrations, but you bring up a valid point because I've heard clients have that problem, especially like fatcow.com. I've heard.
Two cows.
Two Cows is a Canadian reseller.
Oh, and one of them is GoDaddy. One of the cows, whatever, is, if you call the customer support, the music and the lady talking is the same person.
Right, right. But you bring up valid points. I've had clients tell me, I cannot get my domain away from them. What do I do?
Yeah. Okay, well, I've had clients at places like Vistaprint and stuff like that is a nightmare. Like the website builders, and they want to lock, one in one is another one. They lock down all their stuff.
First of all, don't buy your domain with your credit card. Use a PayPal account that's connected to your bank account, because PayPal, they have to fight with PayPal if they don't give you your domain back.
Interesting.
There you go.
And they've got more expensive, well-paid lawyers than.
Yes. See, PayPal guarantees your stuff, if your account, if your credit card is connected to your bank account, you have a PayPal guarantee back in what you purchase. So you don't want to if people have trouble when they purchase domain names with their credit card, because then people know that you can't fight with them. Right, with big companies, you can't go up against them. If you've got PayPal guarantee behind your purchase, then you're safer.
That's interesting. That's a good point.
I was going to say, he brings up a good point with that, and someone that we can't really recommend while we're at the office, but outside of the office, if you want to register your domain elsewhere, we tend to like Namecheap. They charge a little bit more than GoDaddy, but they give you a lot of access for a domain. For just some stupid domain name, they give you a lot of access. And in my opinion, we charge a little bit too much for domain name registrations. $20 is, I think, it's a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's a little more than most places.
Yeah, and so but we don't excel at that.
That's for .com?
It's for anything.
For anything?
I'll charge $20 a year.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's a little bit high.
Yeah.
But so if you want to go elsewhere, we recommend Namecheap. They give you
Namecheap's good.
Yeah, they give you a lot of options for just signing up a domain for $10 a year. And it's pretty cool.
Are you guys $20 with .ios too? We're paying 60 for those
Paying
already.
60 for those?
Oh, really?
Maybe we can special order them for you.
Any other questions?